Cruising to Alaska is a once-in-a-lifetime experience that is on a lot of people's bucket lists right now. But did you know that planning an Alaskan cruise is completely different than planning any other type of cruise or really any other type of vacation? If you want to hear my top 5 things to consider when you're planning an Alaska vacation, stay tuned. Hello and welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. My name is Emily and I'm the owner of Alaskan Travel. I'm a former attorney turned travel advisor, and now my business is to travel the world and bring back all kinds of information to help my clients plan fantastically curated vacations. So my first tip for planning an Alaskan cruise is to, and I cannot stress this enough, plan earlier than you think you need to. I know a lot of people count back 3 to 6 months from the time that they want to go on vacation, but because the Alaskan cruising season is so short, these cruises book up 1 to even 2 years in advance. So a typical Alaskan cruising season, depending on the line, can run anywhere from late April to early October. But the 3 key months that are the most popular, mainly because cruising in Alaska is so popular with families, are June, July, and August. So if you are looking for one of the more popular family staterooms or rooms that can accommodate more people, or you're planning, what I plan a lot is multi-generational trips where a lot of people want rooms close to each other or connecting along with some suites, you've got to plan at least a year out and know exactly what you're looking for. My next tip about planning an Alaska cruise would be to pay very careful attention to the itinerary and your ports of call. There are so many different cruise lines, and each one has their own itinerary and their own stops. And while a lot of them overlap, there's some things that you should pay attention to. So unlike other cruise itineraries or other, cruising destinations where ports of call may not be as important. I mean, there are some preferable beach options, or if you're going to Europe, of course, you want to make sure that you're going to some ports of calls and cities that you want to go to. But Alaska, the purpose behind cruising Alaska is to see Alaska, and it's to get out there in nature and to spend as much time off the boat as you can. And so you really need to pay attention to a couple of things. You need to pay attention to the number of nights in your itinerary. I know people have been tempted to book shorter Alaskan itineraries because they are less expensive. But the problem when you get anywhere under 7 nights is that you are spending most of your time on the ship. And that's really not what if you're going to pay the premium that an Alaskan cruise comes with, you're going to want to find an itinerary that lets you spend time off the ship. Another thing to pay close attention to is, while you might think an itinerary has a more lengthy number of nights, 7 nights is usually the most popular, but they can go up to 11 to 14. You need to pay attention to how much time the cruise line spends in each port. So you may be looking at the itinerary and saying, oh, this is great. This goes to Juneau, Skagway, Ketchikan, all these places. But how many hours are you spending there? Because if you're only spending 5 to 6 hours in a port, that's not a lot of time for you to get out and do, these full day excursions that allow you to go out and explore Alaska. So pay attention to the ports of call, but not only the ports of call, the length of time you spend in ports of call. Another thing to pay attention to is that most cruise line itineraries will include glaciers on their itineraries. However, one of the most popular itinerary items is Glacier Bay National Park. Now, there are only a few cruise lines that have the permits to go sail in Glacier Bay National Park. So while you may be able to sail past other glaciers on certain cruise lines itineraries, you really want to, if sailing in Glacier Bay is on your bucket list, which it is an amazing thing, I've done it and there's nothing that compares. But if you do want to do that, you want to make sure that you're getting on a cruise line that has a lot of those permits to sail into Glacier Bay National Park. All right, now that we've discussed itineraries and ports of call, that sort of brings me into my next really important consideration, and that is, what cruise line are you going to sail on? Now, picking a cruise line for Alaska is so much more than price. Yes, there are lines where the price looks amazing, especially compared to some other lines, but you need to ask yourself, how inclusive is that line? There's plenty of lines that the price looks great when you're booking, and then when you get on board, everything is a fee. All the things that looked cool for your kids to do all cost extra. So you want to pay really close attention. And you want to think about everyone in your party, if you're going on a multi-generational trip or even just your close family. What do the people in your vacation party like to do? What is important to you? There's certain cruise lines that really put a premium on food. So if you're a foodie, you'll want to head to a certain cruise line. There's other cruise lines that put a premium on their excursions. And there's other cruise lines that put a premium on being all inclusive. So the price that you pay up front, which might seem astronomical compared to some of the other lines, when you really price it out, what you're getting for your money, it tends to be a better deal the more inclusive you get. One more point about which cruise line you're going to pick is, how large is the ship? So there's a lot of ships that are huge, they can carry a lot of passengers, have a ton of activities for kids, but those ships are not able to actually dock in port. You have to dock outside of the port and then called tender in, which is small ships that bring the passengers over to the actual dock because the large ship can't get there. So if you have anyone in your family group with mobility problems, sometimes, or anyone that uses, a wheelchair, or especially a motorized wheelchair, that they can't get on board the tender, they might not be able to get out in that port. So you really need to pay attention to the size of the cruise ship and whether or not that cruise ship will have to tender at each port. Another thing to consider when you are planning your Alaska trip is whether you want to add on a land portion. Some cruise lines call these cruise tours, some call them land add-ons, but there is an itinerary for everyone depending on what you want to do. So a land add-on is, you can fly into, say, Fairbanks or Anchorage, and you can spend 3, 4, 5 days exploring interior Alaska, exploring Fairbanks, exploring Denali National Park, and doing that sort of thing, then before you get on the cruise. And I always recommend, if possible, to do the land portion before the cruise portion, because the cruise is gonna be, just by its very nature, a little more relaxing. So if you do your cruise portion and all of your excursions and then try to do your land portion, you might be tired, as opposed to doing your land portion first when you're fresh and ready, and then sort of using the cruise back down the inside passage as a way to relax. But that is just my personal preference and suggestion. I certainly have people do it the other way, whatever suits you. But there again is a land package cruise combo that can have many different components, and it can be super inclusive, or it could be like a do-it-yourself option. You can go up there and plan your own land portion and do it all yourself, or there are cruise lines that will take care of every single detail for you and it'll be all included. So it totally depends on your vacation style, what the needs of your party are, and everything like that. But definitely consider adding a land portion to your Alaska cruise. And my final tip about planning for Alaska is all about excursions, right? So excursions and seeing Alaska is the point of an Alaskan cruise, Remember, like I said in the beginning of the video, Alaskan cruising is different than other cruising. A lot of people love cruises and they go on cruises just to enjoy the boat and just to enjoy the restaurants and the dining and the entertainment. And while many Alaskan cruises have all those things, lots of people who sail Alaskan cruises aren't what you'd call cruise people. This is probably their first cruise that they've ever done. And cruising is sort of just the fun way to get where they want to go. A lot of these towns that are on the coast of Alaska are only accessible by boat or seaplane. So cruising is a great way to see them. So with that being said, it's really important to pay attention to what kinds of excursions your cruise line offers. Again, there are as many excursion options as people who want to go to Alaska. There is something for everyone. Do you want to helicopter up to a glacier and ride a sled pulled by dogs over the glacier? You can do that. Do you want to fly in a plane over Denali? You can do that. Do you just want to take a boat out to an island and have them serve you Alaskan seafood and take a stroll around the woods? You can do that. There are so many excursions. So, and my one thing that I tell clients is, it's important not to feel that you're limited to the excursions that are put out by the cruise line. And especially depending on if you're going on a larger boat, on a larger line, then you will be in larger excursion groups. If sometimes you go to excursions that are sold by third parties, you can be in a smaller group and do maybe some different things than the cruise line offers. Or a lot of times if the cruise line's excursions fill up, you can find that same sort of excursion sometimes for a cheaper price. But there are also some cruise lines who make their excursions part of the package. As I was talking about earlier, you know, there are cruise lines who include everything in their price, and part of that is excursions. So if you want a cruise line and an itinerary that packages everything together for you, that takes you on the excursions, that's there. If you would rather sail on the ship and then do your own thing for excursion, you can do that too. It's totally up to you. I would just recommend talk to a travel advisor so they can point you in the direction of reputable and good excursions if you're gonna go off the ship. Thanks so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful in any way, I would love it if you would hit that like button and subscribe to my channel to follow along with me on all my travel adventures. Is there something you think I left out, things to consider while planning your Alaskan cruise? If so, be sure to leave a comment for me and I will love to hear what you think. And as always, if you ever want any help planning the perfect Alaskan adventure, head over to larksongtravel.com and I would be happy to set up a consultation with you.